I'm back again, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Insta360 One camera. Now, I've actually had this camera for about 5 months now. Not long after it was released, I got it, and it was released in September, I think, so maybe 4 months. But basically, I've had it quite a long time, so I've used it quite a lot. I know it pretty well. I know what it can do. I know what it's not good at. So this should be a pretty well-rounded review. So the Insta360 One, let me just tell you a bit about it. It's a 4K 360 camera. It can shoot at 30 frames per second. It can shoot 24 megapixel photos. It can live stream. It has 6-axis stabilization. What else can it do? It can shoot 360 video, obviously, with the 2 lenses here, but it can also shoot something called a free capture, which is like a reframed video, so you can turn your 360 video into a flat 2D video, similar to overcapture the GoPro Fusion and the Rilo do. So yeah, this is the cheapest camera that can do that kind of thing, so it's awesome that it can shoot both types of video, because I think both are going to be quite important in the future. So that's basically it. You can also buy a waterproof case if you want to go swimming with it. So before I start, I think I'm just going to tell you basically what I think in a nutshell. This is probably the best well-rounded camera that I've ever used, well-rounded 360 camera that I've ever used, because it can shoot good 360 photos, good 360 video, but it doesn't really excel at anything. It's not the best at anything. It's not, you know, there are cameras that can shoot better photos, there are cameras that can shoot better video. So yeah, jack of all trades, master of none, is how I would describe this camera. I'll go into a lot more detail in a second, but that's kind of the overall impression I get. But if you want more information on this camera, if you want to go right into the details, see all the specs and loads of example videos, go to my website, 360cameras.com, in the link below. I've got a written review if you prefer to read rather than listen. So let's just quickly talk about the design. It's obviously quite a small little camera. It's got 2 lenses. It's got a micro SD card slot there. It's got 1 button, which you can use manually to turn it on. It's the shutter key, and if you double press it, it shoots a photo. If you triple press it, it like counts down, and there's another one where it shoots a video or something. Anyway, basically you can just manually control most of it through this little button. But to get full control over everything, you need to attach it to your phone. So that is done by activating this little thing here, which pops out. So this little connector, now this is for the iPhone. If you want to use it for Android, you need to buy an adapter for $20. So you will not get full access to what the camera can do if you don't, you know, connect it to your phone. You can use it manually, but it's not as good if you do, basically. So once it's connected to your phone, you just need to launch the app. So download the app first, obviously. Once you launch the app, the phone will be connected to the camera. You can also connect it to a selfie stick if you prefer to not attach it to your phone. What I prefer to do is to attach it to the phone, set it all up, make the settings what I want them to be, then attach it to a selfie stick, because videos usually look much better if you shoot with a selfie stick, I think. So overall, the design is fairly, I mean, it's not cheap. It's got good materials, mostly plastic, but I mean, it doesn't feel cheap. The only issue I have with the design is really with this little case that they give you. It is absolutely pointless, and if anything, it just makes that's actually counterproductive. So you're supposed to just keep it in here to keep it safe. I mean, it sticks out, so even if you drop it with this, part of it's going to get damaged anyway. This seems really cheap, this little plastic thing. It would have been better if they just gave you a bag to carry it in, you know, like something like this. So yeah, this is the only bad thing about the design. I might just throw it away, actually. So let's start talking about the things that actually matter. How well does it shoot 360 video? Well, I've got some tests here. Obviously, I can't show you in the 360 format because this review is not in 360, but you can just see the raw file here. So as I said, the Insta360 One can shoot in 4K 30 frames per second, which is fairly standard these days. And looking at these tests, I'm sure you'll agree that it does look quite sharp. It looks quite good. What I would say is that it's not the best for video. Quite far from it, really. It shoots good video, like I said before. It's good, fairly sharp, fairly detailed, but the one issue I have is that the color balance seems to be off in no matter what I do. It seems to add a kind of warm glow to everything, and to be honest, some people might like that, some people might like that look. It's just a slightly different style to what the other cameras that I shoot with use. The quality is there. I mean, it's still 4K. It still will look good on Facebook, on YouTube. So the camera works best basically in daylight and daytime with as much light as possible, preferably overcast, really. That tends to work best. At night, it really doesn't perform very well. It's not a great low light 360 camera. As you can see here, I compared it with the Ricoh Theta V and it didn't turn out that well. To be honest, most 360 cameras struggle in low light, but the Insta360 One in particular, there's a lot of noise, even in any dark areas, you can see that kind of fuzziness. The stitching is another issue that I've come across every now and then. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You do tend to have to keep at least a couple meters away from the camera to not have any stitching line, and even then it sometimes goes a bit blurry. But compared to some other cameras, it's still pretty good. I mean, there's always going to be a seam line on any 360 camera that's, you know, costs as cheap as this. So, you know, as long as you're not standing right like here next to it, then it shouldn't really be a problem. Now, I recently compared the Insta360 One to 3 other 360 cameras that shoot in 4K, and here is the test. Here's what it looks like. Now, what I will say is that the Insta360 out of these 4 cameras is by far the cheapest. It is hundreds of dollars cheaper than any of the other cameras, any of its competitors. But saying that, it does come out the worst. I think in this comparison, it's not capturing as many details. The colors are kind of washed out slightly, and yeah, it doesn't deal with low light at all very well. But saying that, the difference isn't huge, really. It's kind of, you need to look quite close. If you're just looking at it on Facebook or on YouTube, you wouldn't really notice much of a difference. And you're saving so much money with this camera, and it's so easy to use as well. So, I mean, whilst it probably shoots the lowest quality video out of these 4, it is probably the best value for money, if that makes sense, because the difference isn't really that much. But if you just want a camera that's good for vlogging, good for capturing your holidays, good for just everyday usage, then this is really good for video. It's just going to work straight away. I mean, if you're just uploading to Facebook, YouTube to show your friends, to, you know, capture memories, basically, this is going to be really good. It's much better than the Samsung Gear 360. It's much higher quality than that camera. So again, it can do what other cameras can do. It just doesn't do it quite as well, but it does it a lot cheaper. So let's talk about the second video mode that I talked about earlier. It's called free capture. Now, what it is you shoot 360 video, you go into the app once you're done, and you can create this free capture video. It's basically where you choose the best bits of your video and you create a 2D representation of it. Basically, it's just like a normal 2D video. Do you know what? It's easier for me to show you. Here is what it looks like. Here is what free capture looks like. This was shot quite recently in a really cool part of London, like a tunnel where they do street art. Love it there. But anyway, this is what free capture looks like. I shot this on the Insta360 One and then edited it in the app to create this kind of video where it pans around, looks at things. I did all this in post-production. I was not moving my phone at the time, not moving the camera at all. The camera stayed in one position, and then later I just chose where I wanted it to see. So this video is 1080p, so it's HD. Saying that, it doesn't really look HD because it's stretched out so much. It's still a 360 video. You're just looking at one square of this 360 view. So it does look quite low quality. I mean, this kind of video would look better if the camera could shoot 5, 6, 7K, 8K video. Also, the issue with this camera and shooting this kind of video is that the stabilization, because the stabilization isn't as good, you can feel the bumps when you walk, the vibrations. This kind of free capture, over capture really requires perfectly smooth video to fool the viewer into thinking that the camera is moving on its own without anyone touching it. But yeah, I was still detecting when I shot this video some vibrations, some shaking, and it kind of not ruined the experience, but it just made it a lot less immersive, a lot less. It could have been better, basically. Like the GoPro Fusion and the Rilo, they have awesome stabilization and they can shoot these kind of videos and they look a lot better. So it's another thing that this camera can do, but it just doesn't do it quite as well. But again, it's cheaper, so much cheaper. Okay, so what about photos? Photos. Like I said, this 360 camera is one of the few that can shoot good photos and good videos. Very few can do that for some reason, and I'm not sure why. But this can shoot 24 megapixel photos, which is very, very large. Most cameras can't shoot over 20, and anything above 20, I would say, is what is for decent looking 360 photos. You need to have as big a resolution as possible so you don't get a pixelated view or anything. Yeah, so I really like the photos coming out of the Insta360 One, but it suffers from the same kind of glow, the same kind of warm tone that the video suffers from, and also doesn't quite pick up details quite as well as some others. So again, the quality of the lens is probably slightly cheaper, so it's not capturing details quite as well. Overall, the camera, the photos look great. I compared it with like 5 other cameras in a single photo, shot a photo in the same place, and then combined them all together so you could literally see exactly the difference between them. And the Insta360 One was probably like the second best, maybe third, like joint second best out of like 5. So I would say that's pretty good for the price of the camera. You'll also have complete manual control over your photos, so you can adjust, you know, the shutter speed, ISO, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the other issue is with low light. Again, it doesn't do well in low light, even the photos. Even if it's such a high resolution, you're still going to get that kind of graininess. It doesn't deal with like details very well, or direct light in low light. It's going to kind of blow out the light, and the color balance is off. Yeah, so again, in low light, it doesn't perform very well. But in normal light, in daylight, during the day, if you're inside with a good level of light, the photos will look great and very, very sharp and very colorful, just with that warm glow, which I just don't like. Overall, I'm happy with this as a 360 photo camera, particularly because it can shoot in RAW, which is a huge, huge, huge advantage compared to many other cameras. Shooting in DNG, which is the format RAW, will allow you to, you know, if you're going to edit your photos heavily, this will allow you to do it so much better, and the end result will be a lot better. So let's talk about the software that powers this camera. The software, the Insta360 One software, it's okay. It's usable. It's fine. But it could be better. To be honest, it could be smoother. It could be more user friendly. It can be a bit slow. It can be a bit clunky. It can be. It sometimes does crash. It sometimes does freeze. So when you launch the app, you will be greeted with a kind of social network thing, where you share your photos, videos, etc., which is kind of annoying. I kind of would just prefer it to be launched straight into the camera, to the viewfinder. So you press another button, you press the album button for some reason, and then you press the camera button to finally get into your camera. One cool feature that this camera has that not many others do is it has filters built in. So you've got these kind of filters that look pretty awesome, and I've not really used them very much, but it's cool that they're there. Again, shows that this is more of a casual vlogging camera for, you know, kind of mass market, not really professional. The final bit of interesting software that we should talk about is this free capture, how you make these free capture videos. So what you do is you click a video that you've shot in 360, you go into free capture. So you've got your video up, you've got these controls. If you press the big red record button, it will start recording, so you have to hold that down to record for the whole thing. And you can zoom in and out, you can choose a tiny planet, you can choose these kind of things. Smart track, which you'll see here, is when if you want to lock onto a specific subject or specific points in the video, it will do that automatically for you. If you select that, just select a point where you want to follow, and it will do it for as long as you select. But if you want to, you know, move your camera about, if you want to move, say, look to the left, look to the right, up and down, what you physically need to do is you get your camera, get your phone, sorry, like this, with the video up, you hold down record, and you literally move it around like that. And the video will move on your screen, and you will be recording as if you're looking around. And once you've done, it will record where you look and create a video from that. Now, this is an interesting way of doing it. It's a unique way. It makes it look very natural, and as opposed to using like keyframes where it just kind of is kind of computerized. But sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes it jumps to the middle of the video. Sometimes it jumps to the end. Sometimes you press record and it doesn't record anything. Sometimes you move your camera around and it doesn't move on the screen, or it jumps to a different point over here, even though I was moving this way. I would say 80% of the time it works fine, but it's just that 20% is a bit too much to have to deal with. It's just slightly annoying. If you can just deal with a little bit of, you know, jumping about or having to do it again once or twice, then this will be fine. Like I say, it can do it. It just doesn't do it perfectly, but it does it cheaply. There's also a desktop suite called the Insta360 Studio, which is actually really awesome. I think this is a really good piece of software that Insta360 launched. It just allows you to stitch your video if you don't want to do it on your phone. It allows you to add stabilization. But if you just want to avoid using your phone at all, then you can just stitch your videos using this software, which works perfectly. The final thing I should probably mention, only because they kind of pushed it so much, is that this camera can also do a video mode called bullet time. Now, this was featured heavily in the marketing for this camera. I'll show you here what they used, the video they used. It basically makes it look like your camera is spinning around you, and kind of like a Matrix style video. Every single video I've watched since the video this has come out has just been awful. Like, you need to, they give you a fishing wire, yeah? So this is how you do it. They give you a fishing wire, literally a piece of wire, which you plug, which you're supposed to like attach to your camera here. Then you spin your camera around like a lasso, like a rope around your head. And in this mode, you select this mode, and then it will record, and you can kind of create this kind of video from that. Now, for a start, I don't ever want to spin my camera, any piece of technology around my head, especially in public, because people will think that I have gone insane, and I will probably break the camera because it just will happen eventually. Also, every video I've seen, like on YouTube, most of them really have just not turned out very well. You need to have lots of light because it's in slow motion. I just don't see the point in this kind of video. I mean, if you enjoy it, then go for it. This camera can do it. But the video quality isn't that good because it's in slow motion and you need a lot of light, and it's also just makes you look a bit silly. Okay, so I think I've said pretty much all I've got to say on this camera. I like it, I really do. I know I've kind of been moaning about it a little bit in this review, saying that it's not perfect, it can't do this well, it can't do that well. But to be honest, it does everything at kind of 70% of what is perfect. This is $299, even cheaper if you buy it from some other websites like gearbest.com. Sometimes it's up to $20, $30 cheaper than that. For that price, this is a really, really, really good value camera, really good value. For the video quality, I know I said it wasn't the best, but it is by far, far, far from being the worst. It is still in the top 4 of any consumer 360 camera that I've tried, and it shoots very high resolution photos. Even if they're not perfect, they're still very high resolution, and it can live stream, and it has stabilization, and it does this free capture stuff. So I would recommend this camera if you are willing to put up with it not being the best, if you're willing to put up with some software issues. Like if this was going to be your first or maybe second 360 camera, and you want to spend a bit more, you don't want the worst, you don't want the cheapest, but you can't really justify spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds on the best. This is a really good compromise. If you want more information, like I say, on this camera, if you want much more detailed information, then go to my website, 360cameras.com. I've got lots of comparisons and lots of all the details on the specs and everything you can kind of expect to find in this camera. So I hope this review of the Insta360 One has been useful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And I'll be continuing to use this camera, so check out my YouTube, and you'll no doubt see some more videos from this camera coming up. If you liked this video, then please subscribe. I've got more videos and more reviews of different cameras coming up, and kind of guides and tutorials and how to get the best out of your cameras. So yeah, stick around for that. But until next time, I will see you around. Bye-bye.